All right, time to record this for the second time, or I'm sorry, the third time. Anyways, I'm Aaron Dusk, aka The Literate Beast. I'm an indie author of two books, The Mark Famuli and The Varcross Key. You can learn more about me and my writing by visiting my website at theliteratebeast.com. For those of you that have been watching these poorly edited, horrendously long and rambly travesties, you probably noticed that I've been trying different formats to see what works best for me. Obviously, with this being a brand new channel, I'm starting from square one. So I'll be alternating between using, a phone and a grainy webcam, such as the one I'm using tonight, until I get a decent camera. And my audio quality is going to hover between quiet and overwhelmingly loud until I get a much better mic setup. And my videos are going to look like booty smack until I can learn how to properly edit and insert all the neat graphics and cutaways that everybody's used to on YouTube nowadays. But at least I'll try to stay on script. Anyway, now that I've definitely sold you all into subscribing, I want to get into today's topic: dumb and harmful habits writers not only have, but brag about. It sure seems like I'm picking on writers a lot lately, especially with the last video, but this kind of goes hand in hand with the awful state of the writing community. Whether it's someone claiming their self-diagnosed dissociative identity disorder gives their characters minds of their own, or chain smoking and binge drinking makes them edgy and real. These are some of the cringiest habits that writers praise as helping them create. So, number one, drug use. I think a lot of the blame here lies with famous writers like Stephen King, who are often depicted as praising heavy drug use and alcohol use as a source of their inspiration. But the reality is it's kind of furthest from the truth. When he was interviewed about this, King stated that creativity and from substance abuse was, quote, one of the great pop intellectual myths of our time. Since cleaning up his habits, he not only saved his own life, and got closer to his family, but he's also written 40 more books. Granted, they aren't exactly confusing drug-induced nightmares like Maximum Overdrive was, but it also didn't stump his creativity, obviously. So, bragging about your addiction to drugs and alcohol, or how you routinely go through an entire pack of cigarettes in 3 hours on the writer's forum is cringy at best and pretty destructive at worst. You're just perpetuating the myth that writers need intravenous doses of alcohol and heroin in order to keep the muse going. Of course, this is all bullshit, and it usually paints that writer as more of a miserable person in need of rehab instead of someone who actually enjoys writing for what it is. Yeah, Ernest Hemingway was known for his heavy drinking, but he's also known for the way he died as well, so keep that in mind. Number two, lack of sleep. The phrase suffer for your art is one of the many idiotic idioms that people have taken away out of context over the years. You can't be a good writer unless you're running on 2 hours of sleep and 22 cups of coffee. Okay, I'm not going to rip on coffee drinkers considering my gross overconsumption, but I also keep caffeine to the mornings and try to get enough sleep. Granted, the living hell I'm currently residing in with the job loss situation and the sick dog situation, I've not exactly been getting enough sleep lately. But that's not because I'm a writer, it's because, sometimes the world just sucks. Neglecting your health isn't going to help your writing. If anything, you're going to be bogged down by distractions, brain fog, headaches, constant fatigue, blurry vision, all the shit that you don't really want to have while you're sitting in front of your computer trying to write stuff. You all have probably noticed my home gym in the background, which admittedly hasn't gotten much use in the last 7 days, but I believe in a healthy, strong body gives you a healthy, strong mind. Before I lost all the weight and focused on my physical health, I was in a constant state of brain fog. I couldn't write for shit. It affected my job, my personal life, and my ability to do more than sit in a zombified state, grinding XP and whatever shitty flavor of the month video game was out at the current time. Sleep is arguably one of the most important things you can do for your physical and mental well-being, and deliberately avoiding getting adequate amounts of it is just... It's kind of stupid and counterproductive. Number three, stop it with the whole my characters have minds of their own bullshit. This has been brought up many times, it's very annoying, it's very cringy. You know, every writer has their own way of creating characters. Some writers tend to let their characters' personalities develop naturally over the process of the story, you know, and then they'll go back and refine the character once they've established them. Some writers prefer to write down every single physical and personality trait, including background stories, relationships, families, favorite food, favorite color, favorite bad dragon dildo that takes up semi-permanent residence in their bathtub next to their loofah sponge. You know, the usual shit. I tend to do a little bit of both. I like to allow the characters to naturally develop while also writing down everything about that character in its own document so that, you know, I can stay consistent. Obviously, if a character has blonde hair, hazel eyes, and an OnlyFans following at the start of the story, I don't want that same character to end up a black-haired, brown-eyed deacon in a Southern Baptist church in the middle of it. Even though you have to admit that would be fucking hilarious. But then there are writers who take this to levels bordering the fringes of stupidity, as you obviously want to do in the writing community. Now, instead of the author developing the characters have become sentient and haunt the author's every waking and sleeping thought. The strong female character that once only inhabited the pages has now reached a power level far beyond Goku and is now the one telling the story. And it only took over 9,000 words. It's over 9,000! I hate it. It's not cute. It doesn't say I'm fashionably mentally unstable. It's more of you're making shit up to look special. If you actually think it's your characters writing the story and not you, then you may need a lithium prescription and some actual friends. Which is the perfect segue to point number 4, isolation. Good God, am I guilty of this one. Black Widow spiders in the dark corners of a hoarder's closet have more of a social life than I do. Come to find out, this is a rather common and oftentimes celebrated condition of aspiring writers and authors everywhere. You know, there's a difference between claiming you're an introvert and tweeting about how much dealing with people exhausts you and actually dealing or experiencing severe and crippling social anxiety on a daily basis. You know, being an introvert has become trendy among writers, but these trends often reveal an underlying problem with the community as a whole. I don't like being antisocial, okay? I don't enjoy it, I don't celebrate it, and I wish my blood pressure didn't spike in social situations and I could talk to new people face to face without feeling the need to throw up everywhere. Being like this is not something I make part of my identity. In fact, just making these YouTube videos and getting outside more is taking steps to break out of it. Granted, these are baby steps and I'm 41 years old, so the clock's ticking. But still, you know, actively shunning social situations as if it's a writerly thing to do is not healthy, nor is it helpful to your writing. If you actually want to make a career in writing, that is. Lately, my books have become more popular and I've had to respond to messages from strangers, which is unnerving to me. I have created Discord servers and actually interact with the fans of my work. If I just ignored everyone because I feel uncomfortable talking to people, it would make me seem cold and unapproachable, and that's certainly not the image I want to portray, and it's certainly not who I am in real life either. Also, on a side note, you know, having to go job hunting while preparing for job interviews is arguably one of the worst things imaginable. Like, in my mind, I'm actively weighing the pros and cons of accepting the interview or choosing instead to be slowly boiled alive. Yes, the irrationality of it all is that bad. Number 5, writers who don't actually write anything. Nothing really steams my crabs more than reading a 7-paragraph Reddit post about someone who has this great idea and wants to write it, but at the same time it's kind of a lot of work and they're busy, you know, fingering TikTok while making long Reddit posts about how all their brilliant ideas should be picked up by publishers or by screenplay people. I don't know at this point. You know, who exactly are these posts for? They certainly aren't for real writers, but this seems to be so common it's become a fucking meme. Back when I followed the writing community, Twitter was full of these blank page writers, ironically bitching about their addiction to social media while claiming it's perfectly natural for the process to include a lot of procrastination and a 30-second attention span. Then you'll get my personal favorite, the screenwriter, as I mentioned before. They have this amazing idea for a TV show and they're absolutely certain that anyone with useful connections are all just hanging around writing subreddits, waiting for that brilliant non-writer to come along and and sell them ideas that will revolutionize the entertainment industry. These people have a terminal case of delulu, as the kids are calling it now. Jesus fucking Christ, did I really just say that? I'm becoming a boomer. It's just happening. I can't help it at this point. But yeah, reality tends to euthanize those ideas at about age 25 or so, which is usually about the time when people realize that they actually have to put in hard work to make things happen. Books don't write themselves, and ideas are kind of worthless. No one wants an idea. They want an actual finished product they can sell. If you're one of those writers who doesn't write, you're not a writer. So stop normalizing this BS in the writing community. Number 6, writers not reading. Okay, this is going to sound very cliche. It's going to sound overdone, but there's a lot of truth to this. I'm actually surprised, not really, that this has been so hotly debated among writers for so many years. Not authors, mind you, but writers. Reading other people's work stifles creativity, and if I'm reading, I'm not writing, and that's just counterintuitive. Okay, first of all, let's get one thing straight. Just because someone reads a lot of books doesn't mean they automatically have somehow gained the ability to write best-selling novels. In the same way my dad didn't gain the ability to play football after wasting 3/4 of his life watching it. But you also can't play football unless you know the different plays, the rules, the formations, the positions. Is that all the same shit? I don't know. I probably spent a combined total of 15 minutes watching the sport in the 41 years I've been alive. So, well, the same holds true for writing. You have to understand the rules. You have to understand how readable prose is written and how every great author creates believable characters and dialogue. You have to understand pacing and how it affects how people are consuming, or in many cases, not consuming your stories. In order to understand how stories are written, you have to read them. Not only do you have to read them, you have to read them with a writer's mentality, in the same way a student may study a textbook. In order to truly understand the most important nuances of writing, you have to immerse yourself in it, because these things can't be taught or explained. They have to come from experience and practice, and in order to practice, you have to actually understand what you're practicing. I could go through 40 hours of courses and tutorials on how to write code, but I'm not going to know how to make a program with that knowledge alone. I have to understand more than just syntax. I have to actually think like a programmer, which means problem solving, understanding the function of whatever software I'm creating on a fundamental level. You can only get that experience through practice and also looking at other people's code or being reviewed by peers with way more experience than you have. In the same way there are standards and conventions used in coding, there are also standards used for writing novels. You pick up on all of that by reading what successful authors have written over the years. When I say successful, I mean like Interview with a Vampire successful, not Lightlark successful, but that's a whole other pool of floating turds I'll eventually wade into in another video. And finally, one of the most harmful things a writer can do for their mental health and their writing career or hobby is to consistently tell people how much they hate writing. If every other Twitter or X post you make involves you bitching about the writing process, editing, and how people are just not reading what you write and you should just give up, well, you get yourself into this cyclical negative mindset and it just feeds on itself. By the way, no one is immune to this way of thinking. I've done it. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. But when you let it consume not only your personal thoughts, but also your social media habits, you're not going to do yourself any favors. If anything, you're just a walking self-fulfilling prophecy at that point, because no one really wants to hear it day in and day out, especially potential readers. They'll be gone because you can only cut yourself so much before it starts to look less like a cry for help and more like a ploy for attention. If writing causes you so much mental torment, stop doing it. You obviously weren't cut out for this shit because it's not going to get any easier. Readers aren't just going to magically appear, validate your existence, and then perform verbal cunnilingus in every glowing review of your revolutionary work of literary art. Now, don't get me wrong, writers do need validation, even when they're like, oh, that doesn't really bother me. I write for myself. While at the same time posting their stories to every social writing platform on the internet. When people write for themselves, they usually mean they're writing for themselves, as in they're keeping a journal or embarrassing Word document hidden in a folder in a backup drive next to all the foot fetish videos. That's what they mean by writing for themselves. Writers love having their work validated, and when they don't get it, it can seem like they're throwing everything into an empty void. I get that, but at the same time, you have to keep going. You have to figure out what you're doing wrong and why no one's reading your stuff. You can't do that by posting a slew of 280 character grievances every single day. If you want to know why people aren't reading your writing, then you need to have people read your writing. Okay, it's not as stupid as it sounds. Like, just hear me out. Readers aren't going to read your stuff if it sucks, but you know who will? Other writers. These are called critique partners, and they are vital to the process of helping newbie writers grow out of being newbie writers. If you have another writer looking at your prose objectively, they're going to tell you exactly what they see is wrong with your story. And they're not going to be subtle about it, okay? Just a fair warning. So you'll need to go into having your work critiqued with the expectation that the writer on the other end will likely think your writing sucks, because it probably does. When you're starting out, no one wants to hear their writing is terrible. I mean, you started writing when you were 5 years old. You were always told how good your imagination was and how good your writing was by your mom and your best friend. But now you're getting brutally honest opinions from someone who has nothing to lose or gain by hurting your feelings and telling you the truth. If you survive the critique phase of your writing career, you're well on your way to actually becoming a good writer. If this process makes you hate writing even more, then I really don't know what to tell you. With all that said, if you've done any of these things and are now frothing at the mouth, feel free to hit the dislike button, call me a meanie, and then subscribe to my videos so that you can call me a meanie in every single one of my videos. Also, if you liked this video, subscribe and check out my newest book, The Warcross Key. If you're into completely normal fantasies about huge monsters with giant rectal prolapse. And as always, I'll see you all next time.